All right, everybody. Good morning. It is Sunday, the first Sunday post Super Bowl, and we are going to keep chugging along with these impending free agents across the NFL. Try to zoom in on the guys who might be interesting to the Seattle Seahawks. And we're moving to a new position today. Today, we are going to be doing the left guard position. And I know that there's some belief that all of the interior offensive line positions can be somewhat ubiquitous, but I'm going to try to divide them up into sections. And honestly, all three of our interior offensive line positions need some serious help. Realistically, if you look at last year's team, we only really had one left guard on the team. It was Damian Lewis, who, by the way, isn't even really a left guard. But Damian Lewis was our left guard last year. He played okay, I guess. Not really building on his impressive 2022. And he's a free agent now. And there wasn't really a backup for him. The backups were Evan Brown, who was the center, and Phil Haynes, who was the right guard. And guess what? Both those guys are free agents too. So right now, we don't really have a left guard. We don't really have anything going on at that position in terms of young players or older players. It's bad. So we need a starter and we need a backup. And while I do suspect we will be hitting the draft to address that problem, we could be doing something in free agency as well. So we're going to take a look at some of the options out there, and we're going to start with the big ticket items, because right now we're still very cheap on the offensive line because our tackles are both rookies on rookie deals, and we don't have anything really invested in the interior except for two other rookie deals in Oluwatimi and Bradford. So we could spend big on the left guard position if we wanted to. I don't know if we'll be able to. I don't know if we will. I don't know if we prioritize that in that way, but we could. And there are some guys who are going to be available this offseason who would slot in as quality starters, like really good starters at the left guard position. So let's go through them. Here are the initial guys that I'm looking at. The first guy would be Connor Williams of the Miami Dolphins. Still relatively young. He's going to turn 27 in a few months here. So he should be entering his prime, if anything. Former second-round pick of the Dallas Cowboys, so he's got good pedigree. And he's, generally speaking, been a very good player in this league. The problem with Connor Williams, the last 2 years he's been playing center. So he was a center this year, only 500 snaps, by the way, so he missed a good chunk of the season. You go back to the previous year, he played over 1,000 snaps, all of them at center. You have to go back to 2021, which I think was his last year with the Cowboys, for him to be playing left guard. Now, back then, he was playing pretty much exclusively left guard, and he was a very good one. But that's 2 years ago. Is he going to have to relearn the position? Is there going to be some kind of a transition period for him? Is it going to be difficult for him to go back? Because, again, I do want to stress, this guy was a good left guard. The only issue you can really have is he committed a lot of penalties. He still does. He's a penalty machine. But when he doesn't commit a penalty, which, I mean, let's face it, even if you're committing like 15 penalties in a season, you're still not committing a penalty on well over 1,000 snaps if you play the whole year. He's really good. But you would need to have some faith that he would be able to make it back to left guard. Now, you could look at him as a center, but the priorities change a little bit, right? Like, we desperately need a left guard. We don't necessarily desperately need a center in quite the same way, so the money conversation has to change a little bit. So, Connor Williams, definitely an appealing option because, at the very least, even if you don't end up slotting him in at left guard, you could just say, okay, you're the center now, and you're going to be a really good center. It's not the end of the world. Now, you're going to have to spend some money. Spotrac estimates 5 years, $68 million approximately, so $13.5 million a year. This might be a little bit high because this guy doesn't have the greatest reputation because of all the penalties, and he is coming off a season where he only played half the year, so I don't see him getting this, but I could see him getting like 5 years 60 or 4 years 48. Very, very close, like $12 million a year. That's what these elite interior offensive linemen are starting to pull down, unless they play right guard sometimes, and Connor Williams doesn't play right guard. So definitely an intriguing option, but it's a big investment for a guy who you don't even know what position he's going to play entirely. And it would really suck if you had to use the first year of his big contract to figure it out. All right, so the next guy I want to take a look at here, this is a guy I believe coming off his rookie deal, so still relatively young. We've got Ezra Cleveland. So this guy was a second-round pick as well of the Minnesota Vikings back in 2020, and he's coming off a year that wasn't so great according to PFF, admittedly, but he is a left guard. He played left guard pretty much primarily last year. You go back to 2022, much better graded, and played the entire season at left guard. So this is a left guard for sure. He's been playing left guard with the exception of his rookie year where he was playing at the right guard spot. I think there was somebody in front of him at that point. So pretty good player. Little bit of a concern that he wasn't able to play better in his contract year. He also missed part of the season, so he may have been playing hurt. That was probably part of it. He played a little bit at left tackle too, by the way, because people got hurt. But this is a young, capable, talented player. This is the kind of left guard you maybe want to make a big investment into. There's no fear of him forgetting how to play the position because he played left guard pretty much all of last year. So Ezra Cleveland would definitely be a relatively appealing option, I think, if you're looking to make a big splash at the left guard position. And I do mean a pretty big splash because the contract expectations are similar to Connor Williams. And in this case, again, I'm not sure it's going to get up this high because he didn't have a great contract year, but it's probably going to be relatively close. 13.3 million. Maybe it doesn't get up quite this high, but it probably gets up to like 12 million a year. So maybe it'll be 4 years, 48 million, maybe 4 years, 50 million. So it's a lot. I'm not going to be completely against it. I do wonder if you could get equivalent production out of a player that you're spending a lot less money on, a rookie. We've seen these interior linemen slot in as rookies and immediately start playing really well. But if you did want to go for the more sure thing, Ezra Cleveland would definitely be a consideration. All right, the next guy I want to look at here will be Kevin Dotson, an opportunity to take somebody from the LA Rams, originally drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, though. And when the Rams acquired him last offseason, it is worth noting that while he did play very good, PFF graded him very strongly, one of the best guards in the league. He was playing right guard for the Rams because they had Avila. So Dotson played at the right guard spot last year and played very well. Now, that's not how we're looking at him in this video, but in previous years when he was in Pittsburgh, he did play exclusively left guard pretty much. And he was still considered to be a pretty good player. Not quite as good as he was at right guard, but that's because right guard is typically a little bit of an easier position to play. The year before that, yeah, he was a left guard as well. Again, it doesn't seem like he was a standout left guard, so this kind of belays a little bit of a potential problem here when you're trying to figure out Kevin Dotson. He's coming off a career year where he was playing right guard, so therefore you might have to pay him that rate when, if you're planning on putting him at left guard, even though I'm pretty sure he would be able to do it because that's what he was doing primarily when he was drafted, you might be paying a rate based off his elite play last year and not his solid play in previous years. And that's actually the picture that Spotrac kind of paints here if you take a look. They have a projection of 4 years, 66 million, which is significantly more than these other guys. And again, I'm dubious that he's going to be able to pull this because even if he was playing elite at the right guard spot, it's still right guard. Right guards are not valued in this league the same way that left guards and even centers are. That's just not how it works. So I think that if you want to keep him on as a right guard, it'd probably be cap out at closer to like 10 or 11 million a year. But otherwise, I mean, maybe. It's kind of tough with this stuff. It's difficult to really figure out. I don't think that his play at left guard warrants this kind of a contract either. So I think either way, he's probably looking at something more in that realm of like 3 years 30, 3 years 33, 4 years 40, 4 years 44. But he's a good young player who does seem like he's rounding into shape here. For whatever it's worth, it has to be said that he did play phenomenally last year. Even though he was playing at a different position, a less valued position, there has to be some consideration for this. So if you get him and you give him the big bucks, which I do think it's going to be a significant contract, you can at least say, hey, if he doesn't work out at left guard, then you know you can move him to right guard. But, I mean, this is the same stuff we were dealing with Damian Lewis, and Damian Lewis would be cheaper, right? So I don't know if you want to mess around with this kind of a decision tree here. I don't know if you want to be messing around with a decision like this when you don't have to. So the final guy I want to take a brief look at, this is kind of the last guy that I see in free agency that would be like this young, kind of exciting, with good upside guy you could get. And this guy would be a little bit cheaper than the others because he doesn't have the same level of experience. But coming off this playoff run, Nick Allegretti might get himself a little bit of a contract here coming off of his Chiefs contracts. And while he hasn't played a lot in recent years, he did form an important part of that Super Bowl run because he had to play a lot because Thuney was hurt. So, like, yeah, he only played 80 snaps last year, and he didn't play any of them at left guard. But in the postseason, he played exclusively at left guard pretty much, and he didn't play amazing, but he held up really good for Thuney, a really, really good guard. And look, you go back to previous years, and you'll see that, you know, he didn't play a lot, and sometimes he didn't play all that well, but if you peel it all the way back to the one season he played a lot, which was 2020, I know it's a while ago, but that was the year he actually played most of the season, and he played it almost exclusively at left guard, and he played pretty well. So this is a guy who's now coming available, coming off a pretty cheap contract, not a lot of money made in his career. He might be able to swing in here and say, hey, I've been a valuable piece of that Chiefs offensive line this last postseason run. I've proven myself to be a capable player in previous years. I'm looking for some money. It's not going to be Ezra Cleveland or Kevin Dotson or Connor Williams money. It might be something more like 3 years 21, 3 years 24. That's not a bad That's not a bad option if you feel like he can play within your offense. It's obviously not as great because you have to go all the way back to 2020 to find a year where he played a lot. But again, that Super Bowl run the Chiefs went on is going to help him because he mattered a lot during that run. All right, so that's it for this video. More left guards later. See you guys later. Go Hawks.